Hey, what's up, guys? I got some horror, another deadly duo here, horror films that are linked to this American Civil War. Like I keep saying, there's a lot of great small budget horror films that came out in the late '90s, up all the way to I'd say up until 2012, right? The the end of the Mayan calendar, the end of the world. Well, actually, as you can see around you, it was a metaphor. You get understand how civilizational cycles work. But in terms of these films, these are two films, like I said, dealing with the American Civil War that are really really good films, very atmospheric, very low budget. Although this film actually stars quite a few notable people in it, and Bill Moseley's in this. But what I'm trying to say is that the topic of the American Civil War is something. Whenever you see it now, especially after 2020, is always going to be framed in the acceptable narrative. These are just the films that use it as a backdrop. You know, you're not supposed to. I mean, this one addresses right the sable genius, as Calhoun called it, right? But in general, uh, they're not anywhere near the focus of these films. Okay, not to mention both of these films take place in the South. This was shot in Canada, but supposed to be the Deep South. This is was actually shot in Alabama, and the characters are all Confederates. Now, so we'll go with Dead Birds. Came out in 2004. You got Henry Thomas, right? Elliot from E.T. Does a really good job in this. So you also have Michael Shannon, you know, that creepy big dude that's always like a bad guy. And the other guy, Michael Boone Jr., the biker looking curly haired, like heavy set dude that you saw in John Carpenter's Vampires in the beginning. And he was also in 30 Days a Night. Both movies he was fighting vampires. But in this film, these Confederate deserters, this is getting towards the end of the war, they rob a bank that has captured Union gold in it, and they try to hide out in a old plantation house. Right? Unfortunately, they start to find out that the abandoned plantation house has a very dark history. Apparently, the owner of the house learned black magic from the slaves and tortured them, and his children became possessed. So, you find that out during the film. The creatures, the possessed creatures, are interesting. They remind me of, for some reason, they remind me of like Squash. I don't know why, but it's a slow burn kind of film. It's not a super action type film. It's gory at times, but it's more just creepy. You know, a recommended film. Like I said, I don't know how much the films from this time period. There's a lot of good films from that time period that don't get mentioned. They weren't the big successes like Saw, but I saw a lot of them on the Sci-Fi Channel. Anyway, recommended. This film I had gone over a couple of years ago. Exit Humanity has a great title. Like I had mentioned, it's right after the Civil War ends. Okay, the zombie apocalypse happens, and obviously there's no reconstruction. There's nothing. You can imagine what the northern cities would go through, but in the South is where this takes place, and you have former Confederate soldiers trying to survive, particularly this very tragic character in it. Like I said, it has a lot of atmosphere. Sometimes it comes off. You can see a little bit the budget sometimes, but it's the acting in it. And in both these films, you watch it. The other thing you can't have, okay, because of the very moralistic narrative you must have now about the Civil War. There's no actors today that are younger that can convey the kind of seriousness, the poetic way of people speaking back then, from both North and South. When you read the letters, you don't. When you see this, you don't see a bunch of hipsters with beards, screwing around as reenactors. They actually capture how people were back then. I particularly like the relationship between the guy that he meets up to help him survive and the guy and his sister. Okay, he bosses his sister around. Okay, but he was supposed to protect his sister. That his parents made him promise that he would protect her. So it's interesting to see that. Also here, of course, you don't have machine guns to deal with the Walking Dead. Right? You use ball and cap pistols. You got to be a good shot. So, and like I mentioned, Bill Moseley's in this. So it's really Really good film. There's some animation spots. What's his name? Was it Brian Cox does the narration? Really good films, atmospheric from that time. The war between the states, the war of northern aggression. Yeah, you saw that with the Lee statue, the way they did it, right? You saw how they did that. His head was the last, right? They cut his face out like a death mask, like a bleeding jack o' lantern, and they melted it down, right? And you know what kind of man? Everyone knows what kind of man Lee was. I it's just to be expected in this modern day, right? So to see a man, uh, his last visage uh, desecrated like that, right? Regardless of if you, it's just the horror. I keep saying the horror is coming. So the horror has been here for some people for a while, but you're seeing your past and you're seeing your future. So anyway, enough. We want to escape from this. We want to have fun. Recommended atmospheric Civil War horror films from before the everything got so one sided later.